So, the cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. The first is cerebrum and second is the cerebellum of the brain. So, it occupies the inferior and posterior aspect of cranial fossa. The cerebellum is occupying the inferiorly and posterior aspect of cranial fossa, or you can take as posterior cranial fossa. So usually that lies posterior to the pons and medulla and inferior to the occipital lobe. So this cerebellum posterior to the pons and medulla and inferior to the occipital lobe of cerebrum. So then it is separated by the fold of the dura mater, that is tentorium cerebelli. So the cerebellum is separated by the cerebrum. There is a fold of dura mater. That fold of the dura mater is called as tentorium cerebelli. That separates the cerebrum and cerebellum. So that is the position of the cerebellum. Then what is the shape? So it is butterfly shape, and the central constricted part, that is called as vermis. So lateral part, just like a wings, are called as cerebellar hemisphere. So the cerebellum is a butterfly shape. The center portion, the body, that is usually called as vermis, and on either side the lateral part, just like a wings of the bird, so they are called as cerebellar hemispheres. So the cerebellar hemispheres are the two right and left portions. So that connected portions of the two hemispheres, the central portion is called as the vermis part. So then each hemisphere consists mainly three lobes. The vermis is consist the different lobes. Then generally the hemispheres that consist three lobes. So the three lobes, particularly, one is anterior lobe and posterior lobe and flocculonodular lobe. So anterior lobe, posterior lobe and flocculonodular lobe. So the anterior and posterior lobe is mainly related to the subconscious movements of skeletal muscles. That means the centers. The anterior lobe and posterior lobe has the subconscious movements of skeletal muscle centers. Then flocculonodular lobe, that is mainly related to the sense of equilibrium, that is centers, the functional concept. So make very clear, the anterior lobe and posterior lobe has the subconscious movements of skeletal muscles. The flocculonodular lobe is sense of equilibrium. Then the anterior lobe and posterior lobe, that posterior lobe is also called as middle lobe. So this should be separated by a primary fissure. So that will be separated by the primary fissure. So the anterior lobe and posterior lobe is separated by primary fissure, that is a V shape. Then flocculonodular lobe separated by the flocculonodular fissure, or it is also called as posterolateral fissure. So the flocculonodular lobe is separated by the flocculonodular fissure and posterolateral fissure. So then again the cerebellum is separated from the pons and medulla. The pons and medulla, that will be separated by the cerebellum. So there is a cavity of the fourth ventricle. So the fourth ventricle is a ventricle, is a space lies between the pons and medulla, anteriorly and posteriorly cerebellum. So in between the pons and medulla and cerebellum, there is a cavity. That cavity is called as fourth ventricle. So this fourth ventricle superiorly connected with the third ventricle, and inferiorly it will be continuation as a central canal of the spinal cord, and also it is connected to the subarachnoid space, that is root portion, and that is foramina megendai and foramina lusca. Through that, the communication to the subarachnoid space. Then again, the cerebellum is connected to the brain stem by three peduncles. The three pairs of peduncles, that is the right and left one. So these peduncles are connecting nerve fibers from cerebellum to the brain stem. The brain stem means the fibers connecting from cerebellum to the midbrain, cerebellum to the pons, cerebellum to the medulla, and also from vice versa, that is in and out. So these group of fibers which are connecting to the brain stem parts, that is midbrain, pons and medulla, are called as three pairs of peduncles. The first one is connecting to the midbrain is superior peduncle, and connected to the pons is a middle cerebellar peduncle, and lower one to the medulla is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle. So the three group of nerve fibers which are connected to the between cerebellum and to the brain stem. So that is the superior cerebellar peduncle that connected with the midbrain, then middle cerebellar peduncle that is connected with the pons, then inferior cerebellar peduncle connected with the medulla. So this group of nerve fibers is in between the brain stem and the cerebellum. So the features. So usually what will be the here, that is the internally, as we again the outer gray matter, that is called as cerebellar cortex, and inner white matter. That inner white matter is a group of nerve fibers. The cerebellar cortex is, that is nothing but the cells, the body, that is the centers. So that is the gray matter, that is called as cerebellar cortex, and inner is white matter. And again this cerebellum has the numerous folds, that is called as folia. So this will be separated by a number of fissures. So usually that will be separated by a number of fissures, that will be a small folds, that cortex lesion, including of that portion of the hemispheres having a numerous folds. What you have learned in that gyrus and sulci, but here that instead of the gyrus and sulci, so that is usually folia and by fissure separated. So next there is one of the important fissure, that horizontal fissure. So that horizontal fissure is separates the cerebellum as a superior and inferior surface. The parts, the superior part and inferior part separated by a horizontal fissure. So just you have to be at the here. So this is the anterior lobe. So this is posterior, or you can call it as a middle lobe. So this is usually called as the primary fissure. So this primary fissure is separates this anterior lobe and this posterior lobe. So this is the midbrain, and this is the pons region, this is the medulla. So usually this cerebellum is posterior and this is the anterior aspect. So here the small, the portion, that is another lobe is flocculonodular lobe. So this flocculonodular lobe is separated by this posterior lobe. Here there is a fissure. So that fissure is called as flocculonodular fissure. So be important, this primary fissure is a V shaped, then this is flocculonodular fissure. So these are the three main lobes: anterior lobe, posterior, or it is called as middle. Then this is flocculonodular lobe. So this cerebellum is connected to these three portions, to the midbrain, to the pons, and to the medulla by an communicating fibers between cerebellum and the brainstem. That is called as peduncles, connecting to the midbrain, superior peduncle connected to the pons, middle cerebellar peduncle connected to the medulla, inferior cerebellar peduncle. So this is the side aspect. So now you can come to the superior aspect, the the position of the lobes and the structures. So the A, so you can see this is the primary fissure which will be separate this anterior lobe, and this is the posterior lobe. Then again here you can see this is the flocculonodular lobe. So that is the separation here, that is flocculonodular fissure. Then you can see this is the center part is the vermis, and these two on either side is called as the hemispheres, cerebellar hemispheres. So this vermis central portion on either side hemisphere, that is cerebellar hemisphere. So this separated by one primary fissure, it's a V shaped. Then another one is, that is the B shaped. It is just only for the identical purpose, that is horizontal fissure which separates the superior and inferior surface or inferior parts. Then here the C is flocculonodular fissure. So this fissure is separates the flocculonodular lobe. This is flocculonodular lobe separates from this posterior lobe, that is called as fissure, flocculonodular fissure. So you can just be remember A, B, C. A is primary fissure, B is horizontal fissure, and C is flocculonodular fissure. Then again we can come to this vermis part, that is a central. So this central portion, you may call it as a body part of the cerebellar hemispheres. So this consists the lobules, the small areas that is called as lobules. So these lobules are lingula, central lobule, third is filament, fourth is declive, 5 folium, 6 tuber, 7 pyramid, 8 uvula, and 9 nodule. So these are usually a lobules of vermis. So just be remember, that is lingula, central lobule, filament, declive, folium, tuber, pyramid, uvula, nodule. So for mnemonic, for remembering of these things, Lal Chand could die for turling pant unnecessarily. So just to be remember the first word of this mnemonic, that is Lal Chand could die for turling pant unnecessarily. That indicates the lobules of the vermis part. Then again in the lobules of the hemispheres, that is in the cerebellar hemispheres, there are also lobules. There are also 8 lobules. So the first one is, you can see, go for these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first is ala, then second is quadrangular lobule, then third is simple lobule, then 4 superior semilunar, then 5 inferior semilunar, the sixth is biventral lobule, then 7 is tonsil, and 8 is flocculus. So these are the lobules of hemispheres, that is different small portions of lobules. That is the important point you have to be remember. Then by superior aspect, how it will be here, you can see the center portion. This center portion is usually the vermis, as you already know. Then just on the lateral side of this vermis, that portion is called as intermediate zone. Then the lateral to that, that is the lateral zone of hemisphere. So this is the identical point in related to the functional concept. Now you can see this is the primary fissure. So this portion is anterior lobe. Then from this primary fissure to the flocculonodular fissure, that becomes as a posterior lobe. Then the last small one is flocculonodular lobe. So just by the portions of superior aspect, so we can have a name the portions. It is usually helps for the functional concept. So this is the structure and parts of the cerebellum. So then we'll come to the what is the internal features. So the internal features is the cerebellar cortex. So the variety of neurons is in the three layers. So the number of the variety of neurons in a three layers, that will be in the internal portion, that is cerebellar cortex. So what is that? The outer molecular layer. So that consists mainly stellate and basket cells. Then middle Purkinje layer, that consists Purkinje cells. They arranged in a single layer. Then inner portion is the granular layer. So that consists granular cells and Golgi cells. So the cells are arranged in three layers, the different variety of the neurons, and forms as a three layers of cerebellar cortex, outer molecular layer, middle Purkinje layer, and inner granular layer. So these are layers having a different neurons. In the outer molecular layer, stellate and basket cells, middle Purkinje layer, the Purkinje cells, they are arranged in a single layer. Then granular cells, they are Golgi cells arranged in a inner granular layer. Then important four nucleus in the white matter. So what are that portions? So the white matter is nothing but again the internal portion, that is the nerve fibers, group of nerve fibers. So here there are the four nucleus. What you have learned, that basal nuclei. What is that basal nuclei? The cell body of the neurons located within the white matter, that called as the basal nuclei or gray masses. So here there are the four important nucleus. One is dentate nucleus, then nucleus emblyform, then nucleus globosus, and nucleus fastigi. So these are the four nucleuses with the important nucleus in related to the position. So that is dentate and emblyform and globosus and fastigi. The four nucleuses are important. Okay, that is the important basal nuclei. Yes, any problem? Then what is the blood supply? So the blood supply is usually by anterior inferior cerebellar artery, that is a branch of basilar artery. Then superior cerebellar artery, so it is also a branch of basilar artery. Then posterior inferior cerebellar artery, it is a branch of vertebral artery. So just to be remember the three main vessels: anterior, inferior, superior cerebellar, and posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So these are the main vessels which supply the blood supply. Then what is the functions of this cerebellum? So the mainly maintains the equilibrium and also the muscle tone and posture of the body. So mainly the cerebellum maintains the equilibrium, balances of the body. So then it also the muscle tone and posture position maintaining is very important. Then the second one is the coordination of skilled movement. It is coordinated with the skill movements. For example, playing piano, or you can go for speed typewriting. So the fingers are never crosses. That is usually called as skill movement. Just for example, playing piano or typewriting positions. So there is any movements of the fingers, that is skill movement. Then again, proprioceptive sense of knowledge, that is particularly from the limbs and trunk region. Proprioceptive sense of knowledge, the sensation, especially from the limbs and trunk. So this information are integrated into the motor system. So this information, the sensory information that integrated with the motor system. That means it is communicated, that will be associated with the motor system. So this motor activity is expressed through vestibulospinal tract. So that means this motor activity is expressed through the vestibulospinal tract. Then similarly, rubrospinal and reticulospinal tracts. That means from the nucleus to the spinal cord. That vestibulospinal, rubrospinal and reticulospinal tracts. That is connecting from the nucleus to the spinal cord. That is the motor activity. So that is the position of the things. So just for example, you can see in here it is an dentate nucleus. So here there will be fibers connected. So that is usually called as cerebello-thalamocortical tract. That means they connected to the from cerebellum to the thalamus and also to the cortex of the cerebrum. That will be the interconnections. So this nothing but group of nerve fibers. They are in the position of the peduncles. So usually the superior peduncle that connected to the midbrain part. So this is the midbrain. So here the from cerebellum to the thalamus and also to the red nucleus and to the midbrain. So this group of fibers are usually called as the superior cerebellar peduncle. That is cerebello-thalamocortical. That means from the cerebellum to the thalamus and also to the cortex of the cerebrum. So these are the connections which are here. And also the some of the fibers is connecting to the other different nucleuses. For example, fastigial nucleus and fastigio-reticular tract which will be connecting to the nucleus. Then paleo-cerebellum, that will be connecting portions of the nerve fibers. Similarly here, for example, see the superior cerebellar peduncle and that will be connected the different fibers from the cerebellum to the spinal cord. So that is also called as the group of nerve tracts. So which will be connected the particularly from the spinal cord to the cerebellum. That is usually the spinocerebellar tract. So we remember the spinocerebellar. The word first is spino means spinal cord, cerebellar second word, that is cerebellum. So the first word is the beginning. That means the fibers are connected from the spinal cord to cerebellum. If it is cerebellar, then that it will be connected from the cerebellum. So here, like that, the fibers are connected from the spinal cord to the cerebellum, like in a different names as a ventral spinocerebellar tract. So dorsal external arcuate fibers is like that. So this from the medulla oblongata they will connected. So this group of fibers, that is inferior cerebellar peduncle, this will be connected to the medulla oblongata. of the cerebellum. So that is the position, connections. So here the group is called as different names. So this is also again the different group of nerve fibers with connections, as in the form of I told superior cerebellar peduncle, that is connected to the midbrain, then middle cerebellar peduncle that connected to the pons, then inferior cerebellar peduncle that connected to the medulla oblongata. So from that the nerve fibers are continuations, and they called as different group of fibers, that is in the name of tract. The tract means they connected from the different part of the brain to the spinal cord, or from the spinal cord to the different part of the brain. Like for example, you can see the dorsal spinocerebellar, that means from the spinal cord to the cerebellum. So similarly, ventral aspect anteriorly spinocerebellar, spinal cord to the cerebellar. So like that, the different group of nerve fibers is, so that is nothing but connections, and in the form of three bundles, that is simply you be remember cerebellar peduncle, that is the connections. So this is also in a different connections to the peduncles through and the cerebellum and different part of the brain stem. So that details it. So you will be remember, so the three nuclei, fastigial, interposed and dentate nuclei. So the fastigial nucleus is primarily concerned with the balance. The fastigial nucleus is mainly related to the primarily connected with the balance and sends the information mainly to vestibular and reticular nuclei. The dentate and interposed nuclei are concerned more with the voluntary movement. The dentate and interposed nuclei are mainly concerned with the voluntary movement. Then send exons mainly to the thalamus and to the red nucleus. So you just be remember in the input and output. The input and output means the fibers are connected from the different part to the cerebellum, from the cerebellum to the different part of the brain, that is in the form of peduncle. So you may call it as a three highway. The three highways are nothing but peduncles. They connected from the cerebellum to the different part of the brain, from the different part of the brain to cerebellar portion. So in the form of group of fibers, that group of fibers are nothing but, you can take it as a highway. They are inferior, middle and superior peduncle. So these are output and input. The output means from the cerebellum to the different part. The input part means from the different part of the brain to the cerebellum. These are the main important group of nerve tracts. So this is the important point in related to the portion of the system. So that is the part of